Welcome to Season 2 of HIPE Stories, the show about high-impact Pinoy entrepreneurs. The entrepreneurs who dream big, scale up, and pay it forward right here in the Philippines. I'm Manny Ayala, and on the show today, we are so excited to have with us Alex Gentry, the co-founder of Sprout Solutions. We will see how Alex went from dreaming about being an astronaut as a kid to creating the leading HR and payroll software company in the Philippines. Alex, welcome to the show.
Hi, Manny. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for waking up so early to be here.
Thank
so
you.
Early
My
in the morning.
pleasure. For you only.
Well, thank you. Well, I will have to say, I will start by saying, you are a little bit of a rarity in the world of startups in the Philippines.
Okay.
Because you are one of the few female co-founders.
Okay.
So my first question to you is, was there anything about your childhood that would have led you to believe that you would end up where you are today if you look back at your childhood?
Okay, funny. So you mentioned, right? I remember, when we were growing up, we had those journals.
Mm-hmm.
Parang, what are they called? They're like the things that you make your friends answer. And
Yeah.
what do you want to be when you grow up? I definitely remember saying pilot or astronaut. Never in my life did I think I would be an entrepreneur or a business owner. I had zero interest in that.
Yeah.
I remember having a discussion with my mom after or maybe before graduating that what is it that you want to do? And she was pure on business and sales,
Yeah.
right? She did real estate. And I said, I think I want to be a writer. With eyes gleaming,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And she was like, okay, all right. That's something that you can maybe start with, but maybe later transition to marketing or sales.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I had zero interest in that. But it was funny because my first job was as a writer. I was with
Yes.
Hinge Inquirer, Hinge Media at that point in time. It was an independent magazine publishing company.
Yeah.
Started off as a writer and then eventually did everything around it from marketing to sales to custom publishing. And so while I didn't think...
Wait, so that means you were the big bossing, right? Running everything as the publisher.
I ended up as a group
Right.
publisher, one of the youngest in the country
Yeah.
at that
So
point in time.
that's where you cut your teeth managing an organization, like leading an organization.
Exactly. But yeah, growing up, like all the time up until, okay, maybe I'll try my hand in sales. There was really kind of an aversion to hardcore business. It was really creative, the creative
Yeah.
stuff that I was
But when you think
leaning.
about the astronaut or the pilot idea, was that because of the adventure, you think?
I think it definitely was because of the adventure. I think also I was such a tomboy growing up. I wanted to do all the things that the guys were doing. And, it was out there. It was big.
Yeah.
And it needed bravery and,
Yun.
courage. And it just appealed to me then.
Okay.
Although...
So bagay as an
when
entrepreneur.
when I found out about all the math that I needed to learn and all that, I was like, maybe not.
Wait. Just speaking on that, I thought at one point I heard you say that you were actually studying computer science.
Correct. That was my first course in UP.
Yeah.
It was so funny because, I went in and I knew that I loved computers.
Yeah.
I wanted to take ComTech actually in Ateneo, but I didn't want to go to Ateneo. I wanted to go to UP. And so I took up computer science, and my first SEM, I was spending 3 hours a day of Math 17.
Wow.
And I was like, I don't know if I want to do this because the curriculum at that point in time of computer science in UP was very similar to BS Math.
Yeah.
So after the first time, I was like, maybe I'll take all of these electives in psychology and philosophy and all of that. And then eventually did broadcast communications, which was my second choice, actually.
Yeah. But there was something na may hilig ka, right? With this world of equations and logic. Diba?
I super loved computers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Because later in your career, you would end up again in a software company, right? Tell us about that.
So when I knew that I was done with media, and I was in media for so long, from my first job, it was my first job, straight out of university, and I was there for 8 years. And when I knew that I was done with that, I was super purposeful about looking for a job in software. I kind of knew. So I was in a print magazine publishing business, and I super knew, right? This is eventually not going to be as impactful as what it is now. And so, I was sure that I wanted to get into software.
Because
what about
software?
I guess that was, I loved it to begin with before. Yeah. I knew that this was the next, the digital revolution was coming. And I wanted to be in a space that wasn't dying. There were a lot of speculation before around print magazines and where it was going to go. And so always after impact, for sure.
Okay. Yeah.
And so, I knew that I wanted to be a kind of at the bleeding edge.
So who was this firm you worked with?
So
what did they do?
Yeah, it was funny because I had already resigned. I was doing a 6-month turnover in my company.
Bait mo naman.
Yeah, well, it was a big enough job. And I kind of owed them that, I felt. And so, I was just casually looking around. And then one of my best friends, actually, who was working in government at that point in time, got an interesting email from John Lauer, who is ex-Microsoft executive. He actually put up all the Microsoft offices this side of the world. Yeah. And he was done with Microsoft, and he was looking to start up a software shop in the Philippines and just wanted, ties to form ties. And he was looking for his first employee. And my friend Mai recommended me. We did an interview. I remember doing the interview with him when I was in Turkey. And, I had never met him in person. At that point in time, Zoom wasn't a thing. Zoom wasn't quite a thing yet. It was really I think we were doing it over the phone, and he had hired me even before actually meeting me and, seeing how I look.
So you were
and all
employee number one.
As employee number one for a firm that we ended up calling Superium.
Yeah.
Which did custom software development for companies in the US.
And what did you know at that point about software development?
Nothing, Manny, nothing.
Thrown into the deep end.
Oh my goodness. So I remember because, one of my big things was hiring our architect and hiring all these engineers. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I cannot understand 5 out of the 10 words that they're saying. Yeah. I could not understand. What the heck is jQuery? I mean,
but they put you in charge of this team.
They did.
Of the whole office, right?
Of the operations of the office. And so I learned a lot.
And how did you learn? Who did you learn from?
Lots of reading.
May YouTube
lots
na ba dun?
of
No?
Meron na. But I think more than anything, it was, I was talking to Patrick a lot because Patrick had software background for sure.
Were you married already
at
that point? Okay.
Yes,
so
we were.
Okay.
And so, just a lot of intently trying to absorb everything that I could from all of these people. For a while, that was kind of an insecurity of mine because, in publishing, I could do almost everything. Not well. I mean, but I could lay out, I could write, I could distribute.
Yes.
I mean, possibly not the best magazine in the world, but I knew kind of every aspect of it. And I remember talking to Patrick and saying, do I need to learn how to code? I feel like I need to learn how to code. And for a while, I kind of grappled with that. His stand was always, no, you need to know enough to understand what's going on, but not actually code yourself. And so I thought at that point in time when I was in Superium that maybe this was something that I could do for a while, but I don't think that I could really live in this because there was that one aspect that I didn't know how to do.
Yeah.
And that changed for sure.
Okay, next question. So Sprout, well, how did that come about?
Yeah. So I was with Superium. Patrick was working with a Silicon Valley company remotely, but he was also part of KMC, which at that point was a real estate brokerage that also did staff leasing and serviced office.
Right.
So he was, I think, their CIO at that point in time. But I was also pregnant with our second child.
All right.
So we had decided, if ever there was a point in my life that I was going to just be a mom and a wife, then this was the best.
That was then.
That was then, right? So it was so hard for me to leave Superium because I really felt extremely bonded with that company. So I think I'd been...
Because you gave birth to it, literally, right?
I had been with them for maybe 4 years then. And even though it was tough, I said, okay, let's do this, right?
Yeah.
And I was a full-time mom and a full-time wife for all of 7 days.
Okay.
Because Patrick started bringing all this stuff in, so he had already at that point in time thought KMC was using this tool, this payroll tool that they had built internally for a long time. And he really wanted to see if there was a market out there, if we could help other companies other than KMC that were experiencing the exact same things around payroll and timekeeping.
What were people experiencing? Or what was KMC experiencing? That you thought, uy, baka pwedeng company ito.
Yeah. So, okay. What they all had found out was that their payroll team was doing crazy overtime every 2 weeks. And, that was just a pattern, right? Leading up to payroll, crazy overtime. And why was that? Because they were doing a lot of manual activities. And so...
You know what I remember talking to you guys back in the day is that there are, 26 forms of overtime in the Philippines?
There are 32 different pay rates, right? So the permutations of a single person going into the office and doing work changes so drastically because there's night differential, there's overtime, there's legal holiday.
There is no off-the-shelf solution from the big American companies, right?
Yeah, well, at that point in time, I think they were obviously, so the founders of KMC, Mike, Patrick and the other guys were all used to kind of Silicon Valley solutions.
Yeah.
And so they were looking at the market and they were being offered CDs, right, to install into their computers. And so
CD, what's that?
Yeah. So they're like, okay, let's just build it ourselves. And what they had quickly found out is that payroll was hard, but it was really timekeeping that was the monster behind this problem.
Yeah.
So from building a payroll tool, they had to also build a timekeeping tool. And it had been used in KMC internally for a while, I think from 2012 to around the time that we were looking at it, 2015. So it helped that company scale, right, to around, at that point, a 600-person company. And so we knew there was something there. There was a problem that was being solved. Now, the question is, could we solve it for other companies?
Right.
And so that was Patrick's experiment. And around the time that I was full-time mom and wife, right? And I remember being extremely pregnant, like big, and sketching out all of these dashboards and sketching out the
what
UX.
would he make you do? How was he complicating your very peaceful life?
Well, it was, he knew that I loved UX and, that's something that I studied and trained for. And it was exciting for sure, right? To see if we could transform this tool into a full-on SaaS solution. Yeah. And so there's this story of Alex being extremely pregnant at midnight, sketching the dashboards of what is now Sprout HR, and Patrick with his single pair of shoes walking up and down the streets of Makati, talking to any business who would listen to him. And that's how we kind of got our first few clients.
If I was there, I would have called Department of Social Welfare. As a husband's making the pregnant
I know, and also pro bono for a long time.
Wow, dole pa.
But yeah, I think it was super fun times.
Yeah.
Because we were then solutioning for something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the something. What did you think the mission was, right? How do you think about your purpose statement?
Okay. When we were starting Sprout, we knew that we were solving a problem, period.
Yeah.
Okay. Patrick and I we're not HR people, we're not payroll people, but we'd like to think that we're software people. And for a long time, it was really that. We were solving a problem. We're seeing if we could solve this problem for X number of companies. Yeah. We were starved for mentorship. We knew that we were getting into SaaS, but what is SaaS? What is customer success? What is, is lead generation for SaaS companies? We didn't know. And so we were just like madly trying to learn online until we then said, okay, maybe, we should go to Silicon Valley and see.
Yeah.
That's where this all started, right? So we applied in a couple of accelerators, Y Combinator being the first, which we got rejected for, and big story there. But then we got accepted in Accelerprice, which was one that really focused on enterprise SaaS.
I see.
And so it wasn't until we were in the accelerator when we found out what our North Star was. And that changed the trajectory of Sprout.
So tell me.
Okay.
Tell me.
The North Star of Sprout is to impact the life of every Filipino by improving business in the Philippines.
Yun.
Very big.
Yeah.
Like, what does this have to do with HR? But at the end of the day, we are impacting the employees of our clients, and more than impacting their payroll and how they do timekeeping, we really believe that we can impact their lives.
Yeah. I mean, it's such an essential part of any business, right?
Yeah.
Paying people on time, the right thing. If you get that wrong, man, you're in trouble.
Yeah. And there are so many other aspects to it, right? Because, now mental health is something that everybody talks about. It wasn't so in 2016, but we knew that we wanted to be able to affect that aspect of the employee's life. But so we were extremely lucky, I think, that we were able to do that and figure that out. Because like I told you, in the beginning, it was just solving a problem. And if it's just solving a problem, well and good. But are you there for a long time? Are you there? Like, is that something that you would really want to leave your kids for 8-9 hours a day for? But when we found that mission, it really kind of cemented, right, our participation, our energies, our efforts into the venture.
And is that mojo still there?
It's still there.
Yeah.
It's still there. It's been quite a ride. And, Sprout has gone through so many different evolutions from then. So we've transitioned from just timekeeping and payroll to, in 2021, a full-on HR ecosystem. And then in 2023, to really becoming the B2B OS for mid-sized businesses in the Philippines.
Yeah. I would say that's a super important thing, right? When you're evaluating startups is, do they have more than just a simple business objective or financial objective?
Yeah.
Right? To me, the ones that really get me excited are the ones that are so passionate about this purpose, right? It's like this itch that they really have to scratch.
And that trickles down to the team,
Yeah.
right? Because then it's just another job. It's just another paycheck. But when they're really hooked on the vision and they really have buy-in, then that's when magic happens. Because it's so hard. It's so hard to build a startup.
And it seems like that's so super bagay for today's young people, right? Because they more than, well, I'm the old one in the room, right? More than my generation, which was
not too far.
Right? Greed is good, right?
Yeah.
The Gordon Gekko. To now this generation, which thinks a lot about having a meaningful purpose, right? in the world of work.
That is true. They need to, and we're seeing that, right? That they need to, and you see it in all these studies, but they need to really be part of something bigger. And I think that was when we really found out that Sprout was bigger than me, bigger than Patrick, bigger than the founders, bigger than the original team.
Okay, so you have this great idea. You have early validation that this problem is real, but you can make money. You have an interesting North Star. How did you think about scaling this enterprise?
Yeah, so
mahirap ba?
Initially, we really were kind of waffling between, are we gonna go venture backed or is this a lifestyle business? Are we gonna bootstrap this? Because we had bootstrapped it.
Yeah.
Up until the accelerator.
That's a really interesting question, right?
Yes.
That you were actually very cognizant that there are these two paths, right?
Yeah. So we were maybe not. So we went into the accelerator for the mentorship, not because we wanted to raise or anything. But it was so funny because day one, first meeting, that was a question that was asked of us. Is this a lifestyle company or are you swinging for the fences? We're like, what does swinging for the fences mean, right? But we were there for 4 months and we were asked this almost every day, which really helped it bring that question to the fore. And yeah, it's a cliche, but founders really need to read this book called Founders Dynamics, right? Because, or in a Founders Dilemmas, sorry.
That's Clayton Andreessen, sorry.
Yeah, no.
Is this Clayton Christensen?
Yes, Founders Dilemmas. Because outside of the Founders Dynamics, there really needs to be this thing that is answered. Where do you want to take this business and how? And I love it because it's broken down into, if you want to have a lot of control and be able to build an empire, then, bootstrap and become a lifestyle business. If you want impact and obviously have the monetary returns, then go for venture. And I think that was still unclear to us for a long time until the North Star. Because if this was going to be bigger than us, if this was going to be about impact, then it made absolute sense. Like to go against that would be to really kind of go against the North Star. So I think it's super important for companies to find that because that it doesn't just cement your passion, your position, your energy into the venture. It really shows you the path forward.
I mean, do you remember when this epiphany came? Well, this is what we should do.
Yeah, it
Kayong
was.
mag-asawa. How did that happen?
It was within the accelerator and just lots and lots and lots of talk and all of that. But I think Patrick had started writing it down. And going through many, many permutations. And one time he just read it out to me and I was like, dude, that's it. That's it.
Okay.
That's it. And wordsmithed it a little bit more, but that's it. And it was clear that as soon as that clicked, then, okay, we're raising. Okay, this is going to be the route.
Okay. At that point, you had 2 kids?
We had 2 kids. We were in Silicon Valley. We were doing the program during the day.
You had revenue now? Not yet?
We did.
Okay.
Not too much. We had, I think, around 40 employees at that point.
40 employees.
It was so hard because we were there for 4 months. 2 young kids. I had not before then needed to worry about what to feed my kids at night. I was so worried about that.
Your kids were with you. You brought them to school. Okay.
So we were doing the program during the day. At night, did dinner, laundry, brought the kids to bed. And then we started working from 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. with our Philippines team.
Oh my.
And then we slept for 3 hours the whole 4 months. Woke up at 6.
Wow.
And then did everything again. And
that's amazing.
We really had come back thinking, oh my gosh, you can really survive on 3 hours of sleep, but not for a very long time for sure. But that's what we needed to do.
Yeah. And at that point, how many customers did you have and how many employees were you serving? Do you remember more or less?
No, I think I don't know how many customers, but I remember, I think around 10,000 employees.
And where are you today?
We are at around close to 200,000.
Wow, so 20x kayo. Oh my gosh.
But it's also been a while. But the growth has been obviously there.
Yeah.
For sure, it had slowed down during the pandemic, as most businesses in the Philippines. But we're very excited as to where we are now.
What were the biggest issues in scaling up? Between 10,000 employees versus 200,000 employees served.
We needed to nail customer success.
Okay.
Which was something that we didn't know how to do. Because before that, everybody was just talking about, account management. Here in the Philippines, you couldn't hire anybody that had done customer success. And so kind of transitioning that from account management to understanding that, you have these customers and that you want to grow your revenue within these customers and expand within these customers, right? Retention and expansion was big for us. I think nailing down implementation in the context of the market that we serve. So this was a big thing. A lot of SaaS companies in the US have very easy onboarding, right? They always say, oh, it's, self-service and you don't need to handhold so much. And that was what SaaS was. That was what SaaS implementation was. But our market wasn't used to that. I mean, this is probably the first software they're ever going to purchase. They want their hands held.
Kailangan ng alalay.
For sure. And so a lot of SaaS companies that were starting around the same time that we were here in the Philippines, I think were really trying to fit that Western or that Silicon Valley way of onboarding into the market in the Philippines. And we really chose to go the opposite direction. I would say against advice, advice from some of our mentors. But we saw that was the way to go because we couldn't keep on ramming this idea of easy onboarding, frictionless onboarding down the throats.
Go watch the video, right?
Down the throats of our market. So we did the opposite. Each customer would have a Prince2 certified project manager, an HR certified implementer, and a payroll certified implementer. So it was very heavy, but I think that paid off for us. I think if we went the other way and said, "Dude, onboard yourself," we wouldn't be where we are today. I think the other thing around scaling was in the Philippines, there's so much software that needed to be written there, but also still need to be written. And your customers are always asking you for all these things, right? And it was so hard to put those blinders on and just say, no, we're going deep and narrow into the problem that we're solving.
I see.
One of the hardest early days.
Is saying no to opportunities.
And really just keeping your head down and saying, this is what we're going to solve.
Yeah. Because you ever read the book Essentialism?
No.
It's a really good book, right? And it's basically behind every no is a yes to something else, right?
Yeah, makes sense. So how we learned about this and how we did it in practice was really because of that big failure that we had, not getting accepted into Y Combinator. So in our rejection letter, and I think during the interview, so you have like this intense 5-minute interview with them, right? Where we had said, we do HR payroll. And at that point in time, we had a recruitment tool that was just in beta.
Yeah.
And they had latched on to that. And they're like, oh, why a recruitment tool? Why this early? And in the rejection letter, it said, for a startup to be deep and narrow, you need to, for a startup to initially succeed, you need to be deep and narrow and not try to be everything for everyone.
Yeah.
And so because of that, we took that to heart and really said, okay, we're pausing our recruitment tool until we have really nailed down payroll and timekeeping.
Got it.
And it was hard because all of our competitors were going extremely broad. I think that's one thing for scale. Just very hard to put blinders on.
It's focus, right?
Yeah.
Focus. So what about talent? Do you have any major issues with talent? Building a software company in the Philippines?
Always hard across every stage.
Yeah.
And we're still learning. We're still learning how to expand our capacity and our bandwidth as easily as we could. For sure, our sites are definitely in the Philippines, but we are getting to a point where we may need to look elsewhere. So that's always hard. I think outside of talent, but very close to it, is culture. Scaling is hard. So have you heard of the 3-10 rule by Rakuten? So
tell me.
We, at around 40 employees, we were super feeling the crunch. Like Patrick and I were like, what are we doing? Everything started breaking. Everything started creaking. You had built something and then all of a sudden it's not working. There's chaos in all the departments. And we were just like, oh my gosh, we're bad founders. We don't know what we're doing. And then we found out about the 3-10 rule wherein, something really breaks and the culture needs to shift every multiples of 3 and 10. Because, it starts off, if you think about it, as one or two individuals, two co-founders. The moment they have more people in, then something needs to shift. And then at around 30, obviously 10, and then 30 starts to happen. We felt it significantly at 40 and then at 100.
Okay.
And for a long time, we thought...
So the watch out mathematically is multiples of 3 or multiples of 10. You have to kind of take a look around and say, where am I?
Yeah, but also, And I think one thing that we super learned was that initially we thought that culture was something that was permanent. Because it's so tied to, your core. It's so tied to the company's spirit, right? But I think that culture, and this has been talked about a lot, I think that culture, you want to treat culture as if it were a product. And your employees are your customers. And, you need to be in tune with what it is that they want, they need, they feel at that point in time, and then adjust your culture towards that. I mean, obviously with values still there and still hardly ingrained, but learning that has given, I think, us as founders, a little bit of freedom to be able to say, okay, it's fine. Because a lot of the time, if the company has great culture and then all of a sudden people are saying, oh no, the culture's changed, etc., maybe it needed to change versus us kind of clinging to, oh no, where has our culture gone?
Right. That's a really interesting point. I've heard one definition of culture, which is values in action, right? Which is interesting. I think that's kind of a fair assessment. But values kasi tend to be immutable, right?
Yes.
What maybe that definition misses is expectations and habits, right?
And I like that because values in action and maybe how it's
pero parang kulang
acted,
right?
Acted out.
Because values in action, I think, sounds to me a little bit more set in stone. So these are our values. Like people typically don't change their values that much.
But maybe how they act it out changes over time.
The expectations and the habits related, right? That's I think maybe needs to be built in. Last thing on the scaling up is what about capital? Nahirapan ba kayo to raise money out of sitting here in the Philippines as a software company, right? Trying to raise significant amounts of money at a time when the Philippine VC industry was very underdeveloped.
Yes, for sure. When we first started, like early days, 2016, 2017. And we wanted to raise our seed after going through the accelerator. So we kind of thought that, okay, there's not a lot of investors in the Philippines. Maybe we'll raise from US investors. But then what we found is that, the Philippines is so far. So we would talk to investors and they would be like, okay, Southeast Asia by itself is far what more the Philippines. I mean, they're too far removed from it. And so after, rounds of talks with U.S. investors, and we said, okay, let's look at the Philippines. And there were very few. But Kickstart being, our lead, I think once we got our lead, though, it was then fairly easy to get the follow-on investors. But definitely not within the Philippines anymore. So that's regional. We're so lucky to have our early investors with us. They've helped shape the company in so many ways. But
you had Wavemaker in.
We had
early,
Wavemaker.
Right?
We had Be Next early.
And then I think at some point we went, Endeavor Catalyst went into your Series A. A. So having done the seed, there was obviously kind of an expectation that we would do the A. We were growing kind of frantically at that point in time. And so we definitely needed to raise the A round versus the B round, which was very optional for us. But for the A, we were burning money. Raising, I think, is hard at any point in time. It's definitely harder when there are these macroeconomics that are happening all around you. It's hard for SaaS too, most especially because we are single market. Yes.
SaaS in the Philippines is hard. SaaS in the Philippines alone is hard. And we've been telling the Philippine story and insisting on the Philippine story for quite a while. I mean, there's definitely pressure for us to go regional. But we had put our feet down in the A and in the B that we're saying, this is for the Philippines. We definitely believe in the Philippine story. We believe that our runway here has kind of extended beyond where we thought it would go. And we are very fortunate that our set of investors, even for the B, believe in that. Now, I think going back to your question, raising is tough. It's a full-time job, I want to say. But I think that for the B round, it was something that was a little bit easier because it was optional for us. Because we had then gotten to profitability before that, and it was something that we were like, okay, do we want to grow a little bit faster? And if yes, then we would raise. But also, so Patrick was the one who did most of the B. And he did it like right when the global markets were crashing. And so we were kind of ruminating, are we going to do this? Are we not going to do this? When we finally said, okay, we're going to do this, then everything started collapsing.
Yeah. I'd be curious, and this is kind of a funny thing to say, right?
Yeah.
Would he have more success raising money with his short hair or his long hair look?
Maybe short hair. But yeah, it's interesting, the ecosystem that we are in. For a long time, we were very considered, I think, as very conservative founders because, we're not big at telling the big story.
Right.
We have a story. This is it. This is what we want to do. Has it hurt maybe our valuation? I would think so. But I think what was important for us was to get the right partners in so that we can go down that path, right?
But isn't it also the case that there is a big difference in the way a B2B company talks about itself, funds itself, right? Versus a B2C.
For sure.
Diba? Mas maraming bongga yung B2C, right? Kailangan
we were always saying, it was super like SaaS Philippines B2B kind of unsexy. When you were seeing all of the raises, right, for e-com, fintech, but it's very true because they really need to tell a much bigger story. I think that we are happy that we're in the space that we are in, most especially because we can make a big impact without necessarily burning so much.
That's right. You guys are close to profitability?
We are
already.
We are. We hit profitability middle of 2021.
And so you're in good shape versus some of these cash incinerators, right?
Sometimes
who are trying to build market share.
It's true, but again, it's the space that they're in. A lot of the time, it's what they need to do. Like I said, we're happy that we don't need to burn that much cash to be able to serve and make impact.
Okay, I'm going to switch gears a little bit, right? So we're talking about the scale-up journey, right? And the scale-up journey, as you've just told us for the last 10 minutes, mahirap, right? There's operational issues, there's financial issues, there's culture issues. But I want to zoom in on things that are maybe a little bit more unique to people like you, right? So women in tech who are married, who have kids, right? So I guess first set of questions revolve around, being a mother of young kids and trying to do this, right? What are your insights now, having done this for several years? What are the insights? What would you tell a person like you, sort of 5 years ago, a mother of young kids, trying to build a very sort of difficult to build thing?
I think that work-life integration is key. In Sprout,
I noticed you didn't say balance. Integration, right?
Yes. In Sprout, we're big on work-life integration and not work-life balance because, the way you say work-life balance, it feels like if you're at work, then something else is compromised. And if you're at home, then work is compromised. And I don't believe that. I believe in bringing your whole self to work. And that includes lactation issues and yaya issues and tantrum issues of your children. So we're super big on that in Sprout. And I think that because Patrick and I are extremely, extremely family oriented, that kind of trickles down, and we really try to espouse that. So I think finding or creating an environment that allows for real work-life integration is key. And that starts with really kind of understanding within yourself, right? That mothering your children doesn't necessarily mean that it's taking away from your career. I know that I've said this a lot before, so I do think that becoming a better mother means becoming a better leader or a better manager. There are a lot of similarities around that. I believe in giving your children absolute freedom within a controlled space, and that's kind of the same with your managers, your mancom and your excom. I believe in like conscious parenting, which is really more about responding instead of reacting to your children, and that is the same with with your leadership team. So, a space for work-life integration, and B, a real understanding that as you learn as a mother, then you're really learning as a leader as well. So long as there is that that awareness there. I think those
would you say you have different policies from your typical company in the Philippines on that? I mean, how does that actually translate into actual policies for your staff?
Well, I think that more than policies, which can be quite stifling, I think it's really around the culture, right? I mean, in the office, when everybody was still going to the office, there were always, children around, either mine or other people's children. We're big on, again, making sure that mothers who are lactating have a space, can do so okay. Even when we moved to remote, and a lot of companies kind of had their backgrounds, and even for internal meetings, their backgrounds, and then everything needed to be quiet. We had children running in and running out, and just really an understanding that, Manny Ayala is not just an employee or worker. You are a father, and that is okay. I think that's
love it. Well, what about you as wife, right? Or are there any insights you'd like to share with other sort of married women entrepreneurs?
I think that I'm extremely lucky and blessed because when we talk about equality in the workplace, I think something that is left out is equality in the home. Women are able to function and to do amazing work in the workplace because they have that support at home. So I'm extremely fortunate because my husband is very, very hands-on. And while the discussion around equality remains in the workplace, and then we forget that in the home, women can't be the only ones changing diapers, preparing meals, getting formula milk ready, and all of that, then it'll be an incomplete discussion. So find husbands who will change diapers and who will really share the maintenance and administration and culture building within the home.
I suppose one of the important things also is being clear about roles, right, in the company. So roles in the family, but equally roles in the company. How do you guys think about roles in the company? Because both of you are co-founders.
We're co-founders, but Patrick is our CEO, and I know this. And so we have a policy, right?
You're the chief product officer.
Chief product officer, but really kind of worked a lot early days as COO. But I think something that works both for us, because this is our dynamic, works in the home and in the office, is that whoever feels more strongly about something, they take it.
Yeah. Okay.
Easy, no problem.
Yeah.
The thing is, if both of us feel as strongly
Yeah.
about something, and this is where I think maybe a lot of people would have a hard time, but I find it extremely, extremely liberating, is that I defer to my CEO.
To the CEO, yeah.
I defer to my husband.
Yeah. Mm-mm. Yeah.
May not work as seamlessly if the roles were reversed. Let's say the woman was the CEO.
Yeah.
But because of this is our dynamic and this is our situation, it works really well for us.
Yeah.
And I'm just so happy that I have found somebody who I can follow.
Nice.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, the last part of the show today, we're going to focus on this thing, the near and dear to Endeavor's heart, right? Which is creating a multiplier effect, right? So, you scale up, you become successful. And the way we see ecosystems grow, frankly, is that people like you multiply yourselves somehow, right? And you inspire and you help the next generation. Talk a bit about what things you guys are doing.
Yeah. So two-pronged there on the Sprout side. Like I said, so Sprout this year is really transitioning to become the B2B OS of the Philippines. And that has a number of implications for SaaS, health tech, fintech, startups in the country. Because, when we were starting out, we had to do everything ourselves. The difference is now there are springboards and platforms like Sprout where startups can build on top of and then get exposed to the ecosystem and the universe that Sprout already has built.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we're super proud of is that we launched Impact 23 with Kaya Founders, wherein we got we shortlisted 10 SaaS companies in the Philippines solving Philippine problems. Yeah. And then we ran them across this 8-week accelerator wherein we shared all of our HR, customer success, sales, marketing kind of learnings. And then at the end, helped them integrate with Sprout.
Terrific.
Yeah. We are also...
I do remember years ago, before you did this, attending a seminar in the Sprout office, which Patrick led on culture, and it was open to the entire ecosystem. And I thought, wow, how cool is this, right? I mean, you're taking time out of your extremely busy schedule, right? Wala lang, because it's the right, it's a good thing to teach people how to
open office hours
culture.
is a thing that we've been doing internally in Sprout for a long time. We really do think, I think we were starved for cooperation and collaboration in the community.
Yeah.
And we really want to change that. We really wanted to change that. Another thing is that we are now kind of big in making sure that the B2B SaaS industry is there and thriving, and we're leading this. We just did SaaSCon PH, which is the biggest B2B SaaS industry event in the Philippines. We had over 800 people attend. Wow. And so I think that the mission really is to be able to elevate B2B SaaS in the Philippines as a whole. Individually, so I love that you talked about open office hours, because I'm actually, I have taken a role as Integra Partners venture partner in the Philippines. Integra Partners is a VC based in Singapore. They focus on health tech and fintech. And one of the things that I'm currently doing is opening up my own open office hours for female founders. So that's 1 hour a week wherein female founders can just book time for whatever reason, if they're raising, if they need help with operational stuff, wherein hopefully I can help.
Fantastic. Well, you are the embodiment of our new tagline. Oh, did you want to say something?
No.
I was going to say, you are the embodiment of this new tagline we have at Endeavor globally, right? And what it says is, more than just scale, multiply.
Yeah, I love that.
So I am so happy to see you and Patrick multiplying yourselves, right, in many, many ways. it's so good for the ecosystem.
Beyond us, right? We want to multiply people that are better than us.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I think that brings our program to a conclusion. So maraming salamat. Thank you for coming here, and thank you for getting lost to come here. Because I got lost also. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Alex Gentry, the founder of Sprout Solutions, the leading HR and payroll software company in the Philippines. Thank you for listening to Hype Stories. To stay connected with us, you can reach us via email at hello@endeavor.org.ph. Again, that's hello@endeavor.org.ph. And you can follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. This episode was produced by Endeavor Philippines, a global community of, by, and for entrepreneurs, and shot at the Podcast Network Asia studios. And I'd like to thank our executive producer for today, Chelsea Sullivan of Endeavor, and our associate producer, Anya Abudar. Maraming salamat. I'm Manny Ayala, and you've been listening to Hype Stories.